So one of my goals as a wildlife photographer has been to have my work published by Arizona Highways magazine. This year I was honored to have two of my photos recognized as finalists in their annual Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition. And while I didn't win, just to be included in that group was a real honor for me. Wildlife photography is an important part of my life. It allows me to stay connected with nature. It also affords me the time to just enjoy the quiet of a beautiful natural setting.
Bill Ferris is an amateur wildlife photographer who lives in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Flagstaff is a fantastic place for wildlife photography. It's a place that's close to wildlife, close to nature, and there's a great variety of animals to photograph. Well, I've always been at home in nature. And for many years, my primary interest in photography was doing landscape photography. In fact, in 2015, I was up at the North Rim of Grand Canyon for that purpose. And one morning, I saw a herd of bison grazing in a meadow near the entrance station. So I decided to pull off the road and do some photography. These two big bison bulls started brawling with each other. And it was the most intense spectacle I'd ever seen in nature. And I was a wildlife photographer after that moment. That's what hooked me. This is pretty routine for me, is driving Lake Mary Road a little below the speed limit, just to be able to occasionally scan off to one side to see if there's anything in the meadow.
In the summer and winter of 2021, Bill took us to a few of his favorite places to find and photograph wildlife. He told us how he captured some of his best shots, and he shared some tips and techniques for creating stunning images of wildlife.
I leave the house and I have a plan. I have an idea about the kind of photograph I'd like to make, but truth be told, I have no idea what's going to happen. And in fact, I live for those moments when something unexpected happens. And nature's always providing that opportunity. And one such opportunity, for instance, was while walking through the Coconino National Forest looking for owls. I stopped, was scanning some nearby trees, and I heard this soft buzzing. And I thought at first, is that an insect? And then I remembered, no, that sounds like the buzzing I heard in Grand Canyon when I saw a rattlesnake, and I looked down at the ground, and just to my left, there's a rattlesnake curled up on a log. And it made my day. I came home with some great photographs I had no intention of making when I left the house, but the opportunity presented itself. So you have to take advantage of that. So I came out this morning thinking that with the water and the green grass, there might be some elk grazing here just before sunrise. Turns out not to be the case, but that is wildlife. One of the things I enjoy about doing wildlife photography in the summer is if there aren't animals out, you can still enjoy a gorgeous summer morning. Just be out in this fantastic weather, and certainly much better than my winter outings. The wildlife aren't out and roaming about and grazing under brutal conditions. They're smart. They're smarter than me. I'm out looking for a place to photograph wildlife, and they might be observing me from wherever they're taking shelter and saying, what's that stupid human doing out in this weather? So we're at Mormon Lake, Arizona, and that's just about half an hour, 45 minutes southeast of Flagstaff. We just got about 8 inches of snow over the last 3-4 days. The sun's out, the storm has passed, the sun is out. It's cool and crisp and there's a breeze. It's fantastic. The world has such just almost like a born today look to it when you're out in new fallen snow. I'm looking for 3 things. Number 1 is good light, and so I'll look for a location where I can set up and have the sun behind me. And the second is a place that has some reasonable natural cover. So using a tree or using branches or using other growth to help conceal me, to help me blend in. And it's not about being invisible. Being discreet in the presence of animals is about, number 1, not moving, because they'll detect motion, they'll detect movement, they'll detect sound. And so with the canvas hide that I use, if I'm sitting against something like a ponderosa pine or against shrubs, then the tonality of the patterns in the canvas hide will blend in and match well with the tonality of that natural environment around me. And then the third is a clean background. So if I do get an animal passing through, there's enough distance between the animal and the background, or the background is plain enough that I can make a good photo. One of my favorite winter wildlife photos is a photo I made of a coyote. I was driving along Lake Mary Road, and through the trees I saw the coyote working its way along the edge of the forest. So I drove about a 1/4 mile down, found a pull-out and parked, and then walked with my camera down to the edge of the trees and laid down right next to a shrub and just waited. About 15 minutes later, the coyote came along, and I got a gorgeous photo of it kind of standing, looking back the way it had come. One of my other favorite winter shots is of a great blue heron that I saw that was fishing in a pond in the village of Mormon Lake. And I just pulled over and rolled down the passenger side window of my car and used my car as a blind. And there was a snowfall going on. It was just fantastic conditions. Anytime you can make the weather part of the story of a photograph, it adds some drama, it adds some personality to the image. One of the challenges with this kind of photography is filling the frame with your subject. When a subject is far away, the first thing I look for is an opportunity to make that environmental photo. If I can frame the animal with the meadow they're in, the trees at the edge of the meadow, water in the area, flowers in the area, it makes for a nice composition, helps tell the story. The most important element of any great photo that's ever made isn't the lens, isn't the camera, it's what's going on about 3 inches behind the viewfinder, right up here. It's the creativity the person brings to the photo opportunity, their ability to find a new way to tell the story of that subject that will capture the viewer's interest. The lessons that I've taken from this experience have been, 1, look for amazing light and photograph it. That's why I get out during sunrise and sunset. Dramatic light always adds to a photo. Second thing is, get at that animal's level. Having the camera and the lens at eye level with the animal brings that animal to a direct, intimate relationship with the viewer. And then the third thing is, keep it simple. A simple composition without any distracting elements, nothing distracting in the background from that subject, is key to making a good photo. One of the most important aspects of being a wildlife photographer is having respect for the animals. So obviously we want to be as close to them as we can be to make a good photo, but it's even more important to be at a respectful distance so that we're not a distraction, or even worse, a disturbance, and altering their normal behavior. So as a photographer, I'll avoid approaching an animal, moving it from where it's grazing or having a drink. What I would much rather do is find a location where I'm confident that eventually, some morning when I'm set up there, the animals will come to me and the photo opportunities will come to me. And then let's take advantage of that and make some pictures. There was one particular morning where a herd of about 100 elk were grazing and drinking from the water in Lower Lake Mary. They're about a quarter mile from where I was seated. And this young elk bull and cow left the herd and started making their way through the meadow in my direction. It's a real challenge to photograph a herd of 100 head of elk and to do it in any meaningful way that tells a story about the herd. But to have that young bull and cow couple in the foreground with the herd subtly out of focus in the background, I think just makes a great image, tells a great story about that moment. Oh yeah, so they're Canada geese. So for the person who's just exploring a new interest in wildlife photography, the tips I would give that person are: 1, don't worry about needing the most expensive camera or lens in order to make great photos. Use the camera and lens that you have now. Number 2 would be get out as often as you can. And while you're out, pay attention. Find out where the animals go and when they're there. As you learn more about your subject and about where the good light is and where the interesting activity is, then you're empowered to know when to get out and to make those photographs that will stay with you as treasures through the rest of your life. So I'm walking through this forest and I hear off to my right the sound of an obviously large animal. A moment later, I see a mountain lion leap across the road I'm on. And let me tell you, it was no farther from me than you would be from your living room, standing in your kitchen looking towards your living room. I just instinctively, as soon as I saw the animal, picked up the camera. In about a second and a half, I made, I think it was 12 exposures. And this photograph is the one photo where you can see the entire body of the mountain lion and he's in focus. No, this is not an award-winning photograph, but this photograph will always have a place in my heart. I could have been breakfast, but I wasn't, so it was a good day.
There's plenty of good days and magical moments when the unexpected happens. They're part of the allure of the outdoors that keeps Bill Ferris coming back for more.
Absolutely, it's the magic. And it really feels like that because it's the way that moment makes me feel. And it gives me a feeling like I rarely have, except when I'm in nature, around wildlife, and they're doing something spectacular.